Hi, Assalamualaikum. I'm Iqbal. This video will talk about the awareness of sexual harassment. Sexual harassment is a form of discrimination that consists of three types of harassing behavior. The first one is gender harassment, which is verbal and non-verbal behavior that conveys hostility, objectification, exclusion, or second class about status member of one gender. Second is unwanted sexual attention, which is unwelcome verbal or physical sexual advance, which can include assault. The last one is sexual coercion, when favorable professional or educational treatment is conditioned on sexual activity. The distinction between the types of harassment are important, particularly because many people do not realize that gender harassment is a form of sexual harassment. Sexually harassing behavior can be either direct, targeted, and individual, or ambient, which is a general level of sexual harassment in an environment and is harmful in both cases.
So, where and who always the victim's sexual harassment always occur?
When we talk about sexual harassment, the most frequent place that always occurs this problem is at the workplace. Okay, so women are basically experience more sexual harassment than the men, and we need to know that the most common sexual harassment problem is called gender harassment. Gender harassment is a behavior that convey insulting, hostile, degrading attitudes about member of opposite gender. For example, men employee use improper words to describe woman gender. This is illegal and wrong even though they intend to make a joke about it. We need to be aware of this kind of problems, especially for women who at the workplace.
After understanding that, what are the effects of the sexual harassment to the people?
Sexual harassment, especially in repeated events, does great harm to individuals physically, psychologically, and professionally. Negative outcomes are evident across lines of industry sector, occupation, race, and social class. When women experience sexual harassment in the workplace, the professional outcomes include declines in job satisfaction. For example, distancing themselves from the work either physically or mentally without actually quitting and having intentions of leaving their job. Okay, when students experience sexual harassment, the educational outcomes include declines in motivation to attend class and transferring to another educational institution or dropping out.
There are two recommended prevention of sexual harassment in the workplace, which is hierarchical structure and policy report.
Reducing hierarchical power structures and diffusing power more broadly among faculty and trainees can reduce the risk of sexual harassment. Department and institution could take the following approaches for diffusing power. Make use of egalitarian leadership styles that recognize that people at all levels of experience and expertise have important insight to offer. Adopt mentoring network or committee-based advising that allow for diversity of potential pathway for advice, funding, support, and informal reporting of harassment. Develop ways the research funding can be provided to the trainee rather than just the principal investigator.
Policies and report for sexual harassment victims. So system and policies that support targets of sexual harassment and provide options for informal and formal reporting can reduce the reluctance to report harassment as well as reduce the harm of sexual harassment that can be caused to the target. Orienting students, trainees, faculty and staff at all levels to the academic institution culture and all its policies and procedures for handling sexual harassment can be an important piece of establishing a climate that demonstrates sexual harassment is not tolerated and target will be supported. But other than that, the institution could build a system of response that empower targets by providing alternative and less formal means of accessing support services, recording information and reporting incidents without the fear of retaliation. Supporting student target also includes on helping them to manage their education and training over the long term.
What are the Malaysian laws that Malaysians are most not concerned on it?
The principal provision governing sexual harassment under the Malaysian Penal Code is Section 509, which criminalizes offences which insult the modesty of any person, word, gesture, or object which are seen to intrude upon the privacy of a person will also be covered under the section. In a landmark decision in 2016, the federal court decided against the sexual harassment perpetrated under the tort of sexual harassment, which the court awarded 100,000 general damages and 20,000 were in value aggravated and exemplary damages to the victim. This case marks the recognition of the tort of sexual harassment under the Malaysian law in allowing victims to claim for civil remedies. And under the Employment Act 1955, sexual harassment is defined as any unwanted conduct of a sexual nature, whether verbal or non-verbal, visual, gestural, or physical, directed at a person which is offensive or humiliating, or is a threat to his well-being, arising out of and in the course of his employment. Essentially, the Employment Act 1955 makes it a statutory obligation for an employer to inquire into a complaint or sexual harassment by an employee within 30 days upon receipt of such a complaint.
In conclusion, I would like to emphasize that sexual violence poses an obstacle to peace and security. It impeds humans from participating in peace and democratic process and imposes conflict, reconstruction and reconciliation.